Chapter 22. Wednesday, July 10th through Monday, July 15th, 1776. But as it is, we have the wolf by the ear, and we can neither hold him nor safely let him go. Justice is in one scale and self-preservation in the other. Thomas Jefferson, writing about slavery. When I woke, the barrel of a gun was stuck up underneath my chin. Men voices shouted. Boots stomped. A rain of hands grabbed at me, countless bodies, smelly breath, unwashed feet. My head fell cracked in 3 pieces. A woman shrieked and shrieked. She was a crow shattering the air with her harsh calls. I moved, not by my own devices. My toes dragged in the dirt. They tried to pull my arms from my body, ripping the arms off a cloth dial. They dragged me from one place to a second place. More shouts, more shrieks and whistles and calls, rumbling thunder voices. They dragged me from the second place to the third place, every voice sowing the wind, all things summoning the whirlwind that would sweep us all away to drown in the deepest sea. My thoughts would not line up like good soldiers. They swarmed afield and fled, chasing the blood that dripped from my head and stained my shift. My eyes were swelled up and hard to see through. Someone had stolen a tooth or two. They tied my hands together with prickly rope. They tied the rope to the back of a cart. They tied a horse to the front of the cart. The horse lifted one tired hoof after another and dragged the cart, and the cart dragged me up the broad street where people smiled and laughed and pointed. My eyes cast down. The cobblestones mocked too. I tried to figure the whos and the whys of the matter, but my own name escaped me, and I knew only the pain in my head and the iron taste of lost teeth. My remembering broke into bits when they beat my head. They took me to the dungeon under City Hall to await my trial. The jailer locked me in a cell with a toothless madwoman who huddled in the corner and spat at me. She pulled the hairs from her head and dropped them to the mud. She was near bald. At sunset, the jailer came back with a cup of water and a piece of foul pork half the size of my hand. Dirty men in the other cells fought each other all night long. On the second day, we heard shouts and screams from the world above us. Then came the boom and roar of cannons, followed by the crack of musket fire and the sounds of hundreds of booths shaking the earth. Some prisoners hollered in panic and tried to pull their chains from the stone walls. The mad woman in my cell laughed and laughed, slapping her skirts. At last the noise above ceased. The jailers threw buckets of cold water on the men who had lost their senses in fear. They said for us to shut our gobs. The British had sailed their warships up the North River and had fired on the town, but now all danger was past. Anyone who continued to blubber would feel the lash. I said not a word. The second night was same as the first, filled with moans and muttering, scratching, and the sound of teeth and claw. It rained. Water pooled on the floor and soaked through my shoes. Rats wandered in and out of the cells, squeezing their fat bottoms through the bars. I dared not sleep for fear they would bite me. The mad woman and the rats stayed in the corner, red eyes waiting for me all night long. On the third morning, the jailer unlocked my cell and motioned for me to follow him. The mad woman laughed again. He took me up the stairs to the courtroom. It was as big as the inside of a church, with the same white walls and dark wood. The windows were of clear glass, grimy with neglect. They stood me behind a rail, kept my hands tied. I shook with fever and hunger. "Oyez, oyez, oyez," called a man in the shadows. He said more, but his words slurred together. A tall man wearing black robes and a long wig sat at a table that was raised on a platform. He was a judge. This was a court. My head was broke and my sister was stole and I was lost. The woman with the crow voice, her that threw the picture at me, stood up. I raised my head to look at her. Someone poked a stick into my ribs hard and hissed at me. I lowered my eyes. Voices buzzed and blurred into words I did not understand. Lockton, I finally remembered. Lockton, Madam Lockton, her that bought us, her that stole Ruth away. I kept my head down, but lifted my eyes, though they pained me. The pain was good. It drew back the curtains of my mind and forced me to pay attention. Madam was pretending to cry into her lace handkerchief. And I am but a poor woman, alone, my husband having fled for reasons I cannot comprehend. I plead with your honor to assist me in the correct punishment of this girl." The judge frowned and asked questions of two officers who stood near Madam. I wanted to ask about Ruth, and where the blood on my shift came from, and who broke my teeth. But I was the only person in the room whose hands were tied, so I kept silent. Questions were asked of the incident. Lies were given as answers. Finally, the judge said, "Where is the housekeeper who saw this crime, Mrs. Lockton?" "Becky is indisposed, sir," Madam answered. "She suffers the ague." "Are there no other witnesses to the events you describe?" A stranger stood up in the back of the room. "I was passing in the street, your honor," he said. "I heard the commotion, saw the girl fleeing, and observed the destruction myself." "There are several other people of standing willing to testify, your honor," Madam added. Her tears had mysteriously vanished. The judge used the end of his quill to scratch at an itch under his wig. "It is clear that this slave has violated the person of her master, destroyed valuable property, and attempted to run away, all contrary to the laws of our colony." "State, your honor," reminded the lawyer. "We are a state now, independence and all that." The judge rolled his eyes. "Colony, state, who knows what we will be next?" He sighed deeply. "No matter. This girl's crimes of insolence, property destruction, and running away from her rightful owner are not devious enough to warrant a sentence of death. Do you have any wishes as to the punishment that I should consider, Mrs. Lockton?" Madam sighed deeply, like my behavior caused her great sadness. "She is a willful girl, your honor, with numerous character defects. I believe a permanent reminder of this day might prove the appropriate remedy." Her words stuck in the air, like flies caught in a spider's web. I could make no sense of them. I could make no sense of anything. The judge scratched at his wig with fresh vigor. "You wanted her branded, then? 20 strokes of the lash would be more in keeping with her crimes. We are now led by men from Virginia, I am told," she said. "Land of my birth. I assure your honor that in Virginia we do not tolerate the rebellion of slaves." The judge nodded. "Once kindled, rebellion can spread like wildfire. Do you want your husband's initials used?" Madam shot a sideways glance at me. "I prefer the girl branded with the letter I for insolence. It will alert people to her tendencies and serve as a reminder of her weakness." The judge picked up his gavel. "So be it. Sal Lockton, it is the order of this court that you be branded on your right cheek with the letter of I in punishment for your crimes against your lady mistress." Crack! The gavel cracked on the block of wood. "Next case."